The front has moved to New Jersey. December 1776. All of New Jersey is now in the hands of the British, who are garrisoned along the northern bank of the Delaware River, 30 miles from Philadelphia. It is common in the 18th century to avoid fighting in winter. Armies face impassable roads, perilous half-frozen rivers, disease and starvation. Animals are a particular problem.
A human being is tougher, much tougher, than a horse or even an ox. A human being can go longer without food as long as he has water than an animal can. An 18th century army finds it very difficult to do anything in those months when there's no grass in the fields, no fodder for the horses. You can't feed the animals.
Washington has retreated from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. It has turned bitterly cold. His soldiers have no tents and little winter clothing. Washington himself is now engaged in a personal battle for survival. Among the Army's top generals, there is open talk of replacing him.
Washington's attitude in late 1776 is one more of desperation than anything else. He's thinking that probably he'd be better send instructions back to his own estate and make provisions for the British winning the war. So there's not much on his mind except survival well into the month of December in 1776. Things look really bad, very bad indeed.
To John Augustine Washington, I have begged Congress again and again to send me soldiers with long-term enlistments. All I get back is delays and quarrels. Then the state send me officers who aren't fit to polish boots. John, I'm sick to death of what is going on. Every day things get worse. Congress botches things up, and I get blamed.
We have a report from an informant close to Washington's family. The general looks extremely dejected. He spends much of his time alone. People who have walked in on him found him in tears. His army has no blankets, none of the necessities of life. They're even out of salt. I have corroborated these facts with other informants.
Christmas is approaching. The fate of the United States now rests on Washington and 6,000 men. The first army in modern history to be fighting for a political ideal is facing its darkest moment. Traveling with the weary, exhausted soldiers is Tom Paine, the brilliant British writer whose pamphlet Common Sense had convinced many Americans to embrace independence. On a drumhead, he writes one of the most quoted essays in the English language. It is called The American Crisis. Washington immediately orders all of his officers to read it to their troops. He hopes its words will inspire them to hold on for just a little longer.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from the service of their country.
But they that stand it now deserve the love and thanks of men and women.
Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. But the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph.
Heaven knows how to put a proper price on its goods. It would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be highly rated.
I fear not. I see no cause of fear. In the end, we will be the victors. For though the flame of liberty may sometimes cease to shine, the ember will never expire.
It is just before Christmas. The soldiers' terms of enlistment will be up on December 31st. In 1 week, Washington will be a general without an army. Across the Delaware River from the Americans, in the small town of Trenton, New Jersey, the Hessian colonel Johann Rall and his brigade prepare to celebrate the holidays. Rall is in high spirits. He gives little thought to the American forces camped just across the river. Washington decides to risk all his troops in a surprise offensive. Horses and cannon and the remains of his army will cross the half-frozen Delaware River in the middle of the night and launch an attack on the Hessian camp at Trenton. It's his last roll of the dice. All or nothing.
December the 23rd, new orders. We are moving out with 3 days' rations. General Washington has just given the password for this operation. Victory or death.
The plan is to move 2,500 men and 18 field guns across the river. It seems impossible. It's cold and stormy. Ice is floating in the river. The troops march to the boats in the most profound silence.
Christmas, 3 a.m. All the troops have crossed the river and the boats have gone back for the artillery. I've never seen Washington so determined. He stands on the bank of the river, wrapped in his cloak, overseeing the landing of his troops, calm and collected.
We begin our march to Trenton. The horses pulling the cannon slip and slide. They're without shoes. So are the soldiers. The road to Trenton is literally marked with the blood of the soldiers' feet.
A great commotion near the meeting house. A Hessian running out from the house, yelling in German. 3 or 4 others come out with their guns. Bullets whistle over our heads.
The surprise is complete. Rall and his regiment are drunk and asleep. By the time they realize what is happening, the trap has sprung.
The hurry, fright, and confusion of the enemy is a scene out of the Final Judgment. They try to form lines in the streets, but our howitzers are already in place. They run behind the houses to hide, but we go after them with muskets.
Commander Rall tumbles from his horse. His soldiers throw down their guns. We take 1,200 prisoners.
The victory at Trenton is a startling reversal of fortune. Washington follows up with the defeat of a British brigade in the town of Princeton, 10 miles away. Suddenly, the whole psychological picture of the war has changed.
Well, in military terms, it isn't a big deal. You lost 1,000 Germans, but you can always go hire another 1,000 Germans. But it's extremely important on the American side. As the news spreads to all the colonies, there is a feeling that it may indeed be possible to reverse the course of this war.
New Jersey civilians who had signed a loyalty oath to the king come back to supporting the revolution. Volunteers from all 13 states are rushing to fill the ranks of the dwindling army. And Washington, whose very command had been in doubt only a few days before, now becomes a national hero.
Our country's finest, chased by a tobacco planter. Poor old England, how thy laurels have tarnished.
From that point, he seems to be able to do no wrong. Washington, after these 2 little military victories, seems to exemplify the revolution. He is the revolution.